أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وهو خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وهو أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد والصلاة والسلام على عترته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الميامين المقتولين المهديين ولعنة الله دائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، وقال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَلَقَدْ وَصَلْنَا الْقَوْلَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His unending grace and mercy, allowed us and gave us the permission and the idhn to come here to remember Hujjatullahi al-Kubra, Fatimah Zahra salamullahi alayha. And he reminds us in his most beautiful book that we have brought you the word. لَقَدْ وَصَلْنَا لَهُمُ الْقَوْلِ. We have brought them the word. We have delivered them the word. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. Now what will they do with it? What will they do with it now that this Quran has been brought to them? The qawl has come to them. Now what? لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. Perhaps they will think about it. Perhaps they will take heed. Perhaps it will be meaningful to them. لَعَلَّهُمْ. There's no guarantee that they will actually be bothered to wonder about it, to think about it, to ponder over it. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. But the qawl has come to them. Now the interpretation of this qawl here, of the word that has come, of course there is the kitab al-Tadwini, there's the book Ma Bayna Dafatain, the book that is between the two covers. That is the Zahir of the Quran. It is always there. And that book has come to us. And Allah is going to ask us what we have done with it. لَعَلُّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. The word has reached them. What will they do? And then there's the Quran al-Natiq, the speaking book, which is the Atra, which is the family, which is the Ma'asumeen. And we will be asked about them, what we have done with regards to them. So this qawl, لَقَدْ وَصَلْنَا لَهُمْ الْقَوْلِ, that we deliver to them the word. That this qawl and this word is not limited only to what is between the two covers of the Quran. Because the qawl, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in its various manifestations, of course, applies to the thaqalain in both ways. And this Quran will forever be silent, al-Quran as-samit, without the natiq, as we read in the riwayat of Ahlul Bayt, that the Quran remains silent without the natiq being present. Or in other words, there is the kitab tadwini, the physical book, and then the takwini, its living book. And that is, of course, the soul of the ma'asum, which is the living Quran. But we will be asked, we will be interrogated as to what we have done with this, which always brings about a series of questions, because the Quran, this is the nature of the Quran. As I often tell brothers, it asks very provocative questions. It's very pointed. Okay, we've given this, so what are you doing with it now? That's basically what the Quran is saying. We've given it to you, so what are you doing? Have you thrown it away or are you using it? It's like straightforward. Allah doesn't beat around the bush and go left and right to ask us a question. Either we have fulfilled the haqq of the Quran, of the qawl, of which its manifestation, as I said, is the physical Quran and the living Quran, or we have not fulfilled its haqq. And the Quran, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in it, is profoundly provocative in this way. It asks profoundly existential questions about ourselves. What I mean by this is questions about who we are, what we want, where we are journeying, where we have come from. These are existential questions. Questions that pertain to the very huwiyah, to the very essence, to the very isness of what we are. And the search for answers to this question and to these questions is the goal of the moment, of the believer. In the same way, a child continues to ask questions over and over and over and over and over. For those who have children, you know a child will ask a question 100 times. The same question. I want you to read the book, the same book 100 times. Every single night, the same book. Why? Why? Is it because they've completely forgotten what you have told them the night before? No. But it's not been cemented in their minds. So we repeat it again and again and again and again and answer the same question again and again and again and again. If this is a relationship of a child towards knowledge, seeking all kinds of knowledge, right? Does that have an expiry date? Is it somehow that once I finish my madrasa or whatever it is that I've done, that somehow I no longer ask questions? I no longer have an inquisitive mind? I no longer ask the same question over and over until I have certainty in its answer? The day we stop asking questions and searching for answers is the day we have failed to answer that question in a positive light. We have delivered you the word, لَعَلُّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. We have delivered the word to them. Perhaps they will take heed of it. Perhaps they will think about it. And no matter how many... Now, I don't want to put this in a way that it comes across as being insensitive. So I'll choose my words carefully. No matter how many poems we compose, of which, of course, the reward is Jannah, there's no doubt about that. Ahlul Bayt have told us. Crying for them and the marathi for Ahlul Bayt, you know what my beliefs are on these issues. I'm very, of course, traditional in that sense, and I believe that's the closest path to the Ahlul Bayt. But that does not replace knowing the Quran. Allah says, we've brought you the qawl. That does not replace or act as a substitute or act as a kind of a go-around from having the pertinent answers to the vexing questions of life. It's like missing the forest for the trees. It is. And that's what the Quran is reminding us of. That we've delivered the word. We've brought it to them. لَعَلُّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. Now, either they'll take it or they'll leave it. It's up to them now what they want to do with it. I'll use an analogy. Before I get to that, recite a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. David Foster had a wonderful commencement speech on the existence of God. He says something so beautiful. He says, he's speaking to a bunch of new graduates from university, undergraduates. He says, there are two young fish swimming in the ocean. Swimming away, swimming away. And an older fish comes up beside them, nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" Two young fish keep swimming on like, What's he talking about? What in the world is water? They're in the ocean, but they don't know they're in water. They've not understood that what is this wujud? What is this aspect of being and existence? And what does it mean to be mawjood? But they just keep swimming along. Because they didn't understand the question. He said, how's the water? Nothing can replace that. Nothing. That has to come from the bottom of one's heart. There's no taqleed in that. That discovery of the essential nature of the purpose of life and existence and being has to come from the depths of our hearts. And that's a process that we arrive at. And it's possible that we could be swimming our whole life as fish in an ocean, but not even realize we're in the ocean to begin with. لَعَلُّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. Perhaps they will realize, perhaps they will not. And every day, I think to myself, what would life be if I did not set out to search for these answers? Because I can't imagine what life is like without it. And perhaps it's for that reason, sometimes I find more solace and comfort of a 10-year-old who I read the concept of aql and jahl with in Nahj al-Balagha, a 10-year-old actually who joins me in Mubatha, than sometimes from an elder or an older person. Because there's that desire, that search for truth, that desire to know, that desire to progress, that desire to answer the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we've delivered you the word, we've brought it to you. I actually do sit with a 10-year-old on a weekly basis. I have a weekly time slot with a 10-year-old boy that I sit with to discuss the distinction between aql, ruh, and qalb. And through Al-Kafi and Nahj al-Balagha, and how that connects to the broader concept of what is intelligence and what is the heart. Anyhow, that's with a 10-year-old. He's in grade 5. But I enjoy my company with him, though. I look forward to those Wednesdays. I really do. Because he's curious, he wants to know. He's an inquisitive mind. And I can't imagine what life would be like without it. It's what gives me the rush. It's what, makes me happy. So as we progress in our lives, financially, politically, have we arrived somewhat closer to answering that question? Have we even endeavored to answer that question? The ultimate question of the meaning of life, the purpose of existence, why we exist, why God has chosen to create us, what the Ayyam-e-Fatimiyyah have told us about that, how we can understand their words. No doubt we are progressing so fast as a human race. Right? I heard one person say, it's time our religion comes up to the human standards. I have no idea what those human standards are. I have no idea. But there's this idea that we're all progressing, right? But I would ask the question, are we really progressing in terms of being a more enlightened race? A more enlightened and learned and civilized race when it comes to being attuned to the fact that we exist within that water, or even being aware of the water in which we swim? despite however far we have gone in all the other fields of politics and economics and whatever it is, and United Nations and human rights and so on and so forth. I'm not dismissing those things. But has it made us ultimately a better abd of Allah or not? A more enlightened servant of Allah or not? I'm not saying yes or no. I'm simply asking the question. That as our communities progress, our societies move forward, have we become better servants of God? And these are the questions that Sayyida Zahra, salamullahi alayha, these are the questions that she initiates in the very opening of her sermon. I mean, these are statements that are so profound that it reminded me immediately of the first khutbah of Nahj al-Balagha. That the similarities between Sayyida Zahra's speech and the khutbahs, especially the first khutbah of Nahj al-Balagha, are remarkable. I mean, it's uncanny, the similarities between the two. And it leaves me dumbfounded each time, despite reading the same khutbah for 10 years in its original language. I'm still dumbfounded. Every time, speechless and dumbfounded. I don't know what to say. But it brings me back to something that a quotation that I remember reading from Franz Rosenthal. He's a Jewish historian, but he says something very interesting in a book called Knowledge Triumphant. He says that there is no civilization in history like Islamic civilization. Why? Because there is no civilization that put the pursuit, the development, and the acquisition of knowledge at the very forefront of its existence. The very forefront of its existence is the development, the acquisition, and the pursuit of knowledge. Franz Rosenthal says this, a Jew, that I have come across no civilization like this on earth. Knowledge which has truly contributed to the enlightenment and the betterment of insan. There can be no disconnection. You see, so why is this the case? Is it because Muslims only pursued knowledge of theology? No. If that was the case, then that would be a very limited field of knowledge. Or they only pursued knowledge of Arabic grammar? No. Or they only pursued knowledge in the field of, they only excelled rather in the field of astronomy? No. Or in tafsir, or in hadith? No. Muslims were the leaders and the pioneers in nearly, I wouldn't say every single, but nearly every single field, such that even the astronomical tables for moon sighting that are used today by NASA were written during the Ottoman period. The blueprints of that. But there's one important point here. It's not simply about knowledge. That all of that knowledge was never disconnected from the purpose of existence, from the purpose of being, from why we are here and who has given us that knowledge, and what do we owe to the one who has given us that knowledge. There was no such thing as, oh, I'll educate my child, a little bit dunya, a little bit deen. There's no idea. This whole concept of little bit of dunya, a little bit of deen, as if somehow deen is disconnected from dunya, this whole idea, this whole concept, this whole separation is a completely new bid'ah. Completely. It never existed. And I often hear, young parents sometimes coming, well, I don't want my son to become a Maulana, but teach him a little bit. It's okay. It doesn't have to become a Maulana. And I think to myself, the sheer jahl of such a statement. So those people that were writing astronomical tables and doing chemistry experiments, they never saw what they were doing as separate from the search for the existence of God. They saw everything as answering that statement, and we brought you the qawl لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. They never saw themselves as being separate from Qur'an. This entire idea and conception is I mean, I don't even know how to express how ignorant and ridiculous it is. How childish, I wouldn't even say childish because children are ma'asum, but how preposterous a separation like that would be. A frame of thinking and a mind that would think that way is such a pity, and it's so sad and it's so depressing because it demonstrates that humanity has moved so far away from that qawl which has been brought to them. And Sayyida Zahra salamullahi alayha reminds us of this, and that's why I would say, without a doubt, that the Islamic civilization, of course, is known for the seeking of knowledge. But the queen of that civilization of knowledge is Sayyida Zahra salamullahi alayha. She is the mistress and the queen of that empire of knowledge. She is the queen and of the empire of that ilm and knowledge. And she says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la kalimatun ja'ala al-ikhlasu ta'wiluha wa dumina al-qulub mawsulaha. She says, she begins, many other statements, we don't have time to go through so much, just a few statements for today. She says that I testified that there is no God but God. Wahdahu la sharika la. He is one, in full unicity rather, without any partner. But this is a kalima. This is a word that can be summarized in the following way, or that can be explained in the following way. And that is ikhlas, sincerity. I won't go into too much depth. We're just introducing the subject tonight. وَالضُّمِنَ الْقُلُوبِ مَوْصُولُهَا. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. She then says, but it has been guaranteed that the kalima la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la will penetrate the hearts. That the hearts have been made by Allah in such a way that the wahdaniyat of Allah, the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jal, will arrive in the hearts of insan. Because the nature of the heart of insan has been made to receive la ilaha illallah. That's the purpose of the qalb of insan. To receive this monotheism, to receive the message of la ilaha illallah in all its fullness, with all its bayinat, with all of its ayat, with all of its meaning and ma'ani. The heart of insan, dumina al-qulub mawsuluha, that it is certain to enter their hearts. Allah has guaranteed that. Why? Of course, we read in the Quran, فَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلْدِينِ حَنِيفًا. That turn your entire self. When we say wajh, means your entire self. Turn your entire being. لِلْدِينِ حَنِيفًا. To the upright religion, meaning the religion of monotheism. Fitratullahi allati fatara an-nas alayha. To this essence that you have within you that opens your heart to la ilaha illallah, that opens your heart to the existence of God, that opens your heart to the love of God, that opens your heart to the acceptance of God as your creator and your guide and your sustainer. because that is how God has created us. That is the fundamental blueprint of insan. The way we stand, the way we eat, the way we use our thumbs, our knowledge, everything about it is perfect. Every single aspect of it is related to the fitrah that Allah has put within us. And that's fitratullahi, which is even requires a very long discussion as to why it is an idafa here. The fitrah of Allah. It doesn't literally mean Allah obviously doesn't have a fitrah. Right? But it's that divine inspiration that God has put within us. That He has inspired each and every one of us to meet the challenge of the qawl. Because it has been delivered, and He's ensured that each and every one of our hearts has the capacity to accept it. In one way or another. That every human being has the infinite gift, as the Ayyamah have said, of ma'rifatul tawheed. Every single insan. This is the Ayyamah. Go to the whole Bab in Al-Kafi. And then Allah says, لا تبديل لخلق الله. And there is no changing the creation of God. ذلك الدين القيم لكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. That this is how God has created us. There is no changing this. That all the changes that occur to us, my dear brothers, are external. They're external influences. They're external changes. They're external effects. They don't come from inside our soul. Because there's no tabdeel in the creation of Allah. There's no changing it. There's no altering it. Allah promises here. This is the upright religion. But most people don't know. أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Most people don't know. That when the nature of insan is altered, it's not their essence that's altered. It's external factors. We're going to get to Sayyida Zahra in a moment because she, Allahu Akbar, I mean, she really goes into so much depth in these lines. If we can tonight or tomorrow. As I said, we're introducing the subject. We are born with this desire to believe in God. We are born with this desire to turn our entire being to the one who has given us existence. We are born with this nature. This is how God has created us. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة. Every person that is born on the fitrah. Until their parents يحودانهم, they make him Jewish, or they make him Christian, or يمجسانه, or they make him a Zoroastrian, or إلى آخر الكلام. This is the hadith of the Prophet, so famous, everyone has heard it. Narrated numerous times. And every aspect of this Sharia and of the Sunnah and of the revelation is meant to preserve that fitrah. It's meant to nurture that fitrah. It's meant to take care of it. So that it is not blinded. So that it can receive the word. Make sense of the word. Act upon the word, meaning the Quran and the Sunnah. Live according to the word. Cry when they hear the word. Fall into sajda when they hear the word. Tremble when they hear the word. Have their hair stand up when they hear the word, as the Quran says. That the Sunnah and the Sharia and the way towards faithfulness as taught by the Kitab and the Sunnah through the Ahlul Bayt is meant to preserve this fitrah. In the midst of external factors that can put a cover over it and not allow it to shine, to prosper, to blossom in the way that Allah has created it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To put this even further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Iblis in the Quran, قَالَ يَا إِبْلِيسِ مَا مَنَعَكَ أَن تَسْجُدَ لِمَا خَلَقْتُ بِيَدَيْ. That what prevented you, O Iblis? Surah Sa'ad 75. What prevented you from doing sajda to the one that I created with my two hands? Allahu Akbar. We'll get to that in a minute. Two hands. Why two hands here? Are we aware of how powerful, what powerful symbolism is in this verse with regards to insan? What human beings have been endowed with and given? The tashrif in this verse? Why does Allah use the word two hands here? Why not one hand? No, this is a profound discussion. Of course Allah doesn't have hands. It's a representative of His qudra and His quwwah and so on and so forth, of course. But it has profound symbolism. That I created you. With my two hands, meaning, not literally, meaning I created you with all my might, with all my beauty, with all my love, with all my power, and I put it in you. Fitratullah. This is the fitrah of Allah. This inspiration that God has put within us to find Him, to live a life in His love, in His devotion, in His worship, in His awareness. This is a great ihtimam, emphasis that the Quran puts. Al-khas, ihtimam al-khas. And that's why Sayyida Zahra says, وَأَنَارَ فِي الْتَفَكُّرْ مَعْكُولُهَا. Allahu Akbar. So once the word La ilaha illallah reaches our hearts, once it reaches our hearts, it now illuminates our intellect. We have been given illumination. أَنَارَ فِي الْتَفَكُّرْ مَعْكُولُهَا. That the ma'kul, the ability to understand, our intelligence, our intellect, is given light, it's given its purpose, it's given its beauty by thinking about La ilaha illallah. But what does that mean to me? That there is no God but God, there is no creator but Him, there is no true sustainer but Him. There is no one that is ultimately merciful but Him. There was no one that is ultimately wise but Him. There was no one that is ultimately powerful but Him. This is what Sayyida Zahra is saying. And then anar, and then this light comes. And the human being is now illuminated. Their intellect is given light and they're illuminated. And now they become a dignified human being. Now, when God said, and I created them with my two hands, meaning through power and qudra, not literally. It's a symbolic language, of course. Now the meaning of this verse comes to life in this sense. Because the light of their intelligence shines only with La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la. And everything that comes with that, which is of course the Nabuwah and the Imamah. She will get to that later. That's where the dignity of insan comes from. That's where the true meaning of human life comes from. That's where the true honor of belonging to Bani Adam comes from. That's what it means to join the club of Insaniyyah. Now how, I would ask, in light of that could we say that I want little bit of deen, little bit of dunya? How? How can the presence of God be separated from anything for a moment? How could that idea even come into someone's mind? It's maybe because the understanding of what deen is, what Islam is, what the kalima of Tawheed is not understood perhaps, of what it even means, what it implies, what it conveys. And through that, of course, an injustice would be done. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So Sayyida Zahra talks about Tawheed as a belief. Kalima la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. She talks about the hearts, of course, as the seat of the soul, our qulub, our hearts, as accepting la ilaha illallah. Allah has made it such that it will be delivered. وَصَلْنَا لَهُمَ الْقَوْلِ. Allah says, we delivered the qawl. We brought it. Now, whether the heart is corrupted and dark and full of sins and full of this and full of that's something else. Those are all the external factors that people bring into their life, right? Which puts a veil over that essence. But the heart has been made in such a way to accept it. And then, once we ponder over its meaning, its importance, its implications upon our life, our being, our existence, our purpose, our direction, that is the presence of God, the existence of God, the mabda and the ma'at, the beginning and the end, the beginning and the return. Once we start thinking about these matters, then our intellect becomes illuminated. Until then, it is in darkness. Anara fi tafakkur ma'kuluha. There can be no nur without that fundamental understanding. That fundamental step. Why do I exist and who has given me that existence? Why am I here? Why do I exist as opposed to not existing? Why do I think? Why do I have a moment when I can think as opposed to not thinking? Can I shut that off? No. Why can't I? Why can't I shut it off? There's no switch to shut it off. Because that is a spiritual experience. That is the eternal soul. That is the greatest reflection of the soul, as Ayyam have explained. The fact that you cannot shut that off. That means you are having a spiritual experience right now. And that's why some theologians, this is based of course on the kalam of the Ayyam, go on to say that God doesn't need to be proven. He is self-evident. Like those fish swimming in water. But we can only have light, as Sayyida Zahra says, we can only be illuminated to that. The light can only turn on, so to speak, if we make an effort to know about La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. That is the beginning of everything. That is the beginning of any conversation of meaning, of any conversation of substance, of any conversation of any worth or qimah. And that is why she begins in this way. Why would she begin a political speech? It's political, of course. In the most profound way, it is political. With a long introduction to Tawheed and Nabuwah. People will think, what does that have to do with that? Why can't she just come and say, I demand my rights? Why does she begin with a very beautiful, powerful, and illuminative introduction to the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the life of the Nabi and his contributions? Wouldn't people, but that's politics and that's religion, people would say. Keep them separate. Deen and dunya. Cordon one off from the other. God forbid they would mix. God forbid one would have to say something to the other. There is no such thing as little bit of deen, little bit of dunya. That's the point. There's no such thing as that. Just teach my kid what they need to know, the basics, and that's enough. We don't want her to become a Mulyani Ma or anything. Or a Maulana. I want him to be a CEO, not a Maulana. Why are you going too much into sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I've heard these things. Some people have actually had the audacity to say this to me. So this khutbah is all about the political movements of the time, right? About demanding her rights, so on and so forth, the injustices that were done. Yet the large portion of it, at least 2 pages, pertain to the sifat of Allah, the sifat of the Nabi, the philosophy of Tawheed, the philosophy of Hajj, and on and on and on. People would think, what does that have to do with that? That's the beauty of Sayyida Zahra. It's all one. There's no separation between anything, because it is all divine knowledge. And all divine knowledge must begin with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'll continue, inshallah, tomorrow with the other aspects of this. But I'll end with one tradition here. We read in the books of Fada'il, Shahid al-Awwal narrates with his tariq to Sheikh Saduq, who narrates with his tariq to Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, who narrates from the Messenger of Allah, who said, قال الله تعالى, Allah has said in Hadith al-Qudsi, Ya Ahmad, lawlaka lama khalaqtu al-aflaq. O Ahmad, had it not been for you, I would not have created the universe, the aflaq, meaning the celestial bodies. Walawla Ali lama khalaqtuka. Had it not been for Ali, I wouldn't have created you. Walawla Fatima lama khalaqtukuma. Had it not been for Fatima, I would not have created Muhammad or Ali. But then I will ask a question here. And we know, of course, the power of this tradition will require discussion, and we will address that in its proper place, of course. But who is the one saying, Ya Ahmad? That's what Sayyida Zahra is getting to. O Ahmad, meaning, O my Prophet, who is the one saying, Ya Ahmad? That's what she wants us to know. Who is that saying, Ya Ahmad? How has He created us? How has He made us? How has He brought us into this world? Why has He brought us into this world? How can we understand the illat of mawjood, the reason of creation, without first understanding the Creator Himself? The Khaliq al-Mawjudat. Yes, Sayyida Zahra is Allat al-Mawjudat, Allah al-Kubra al-Mawjudat, the greatest and most azim reason for the creation of mawjudat, of existence. Yes. But how can she necessarily be understood? What she's trying to explain to us, before I get to everything else, we need to first know who is the Khaliq of the mawjudat, the creator of everything, altogether. And that's why the kalam of Ahlul Bayt is so beautiful. It is so amazing, it is so perfect, it is so measured, it is so pristine, without any contradictions, without any ambiguities, and without any slips. That's the kalam of Ahlul Bayt salamullahi alayhim. And this was a woman that we read in the traditions went for 40 days. Sheikh Mufid narrates in Kitab al-Ikhtisas. I know the tradition, but I like to show people the book. This is from Sheikh al-Mufid. Mufid reports in Kitab al-Ikhtisas from Abdullah ibn Sinan, from Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi, that after she was denied her right, حملها علي على أتان عليه كساه, that they rode on an animal, and with Hassan and Hussein. For 40 days she went to the house of the Muslims, of the Ansar specifically. And you know what the riwayah says here? لا أجابها ولا نصرها. Nobody responded to her. 40 days, imagine, 40 يوم. فما أعانها أحد ولا أجابها ولا نصرها. She was not assisted, she was not given any jawab, nor was she given any aid. For 40 days. She went home to home to home, reminding them of their duties, until she got to the last one, to the last Sahabi. And she went to him and she said, will you assist me? Did you not give bay'ah to Rasulullah? He said, yes. But then he asks her something question. He asks her a question. Is there anyone but me? She says, no. He says, then why would I help you? So he left her. And she was left alone with her sons and her husband. That is the betrayal of Sayyida Zahra. That the word came to them, but they never accepted it. And this is the pain that we see when we see the cries of Zainab begging the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad not to execute her brother. I want to end on this note. Just imagine this. She cries, she pleads with them over and over and again not to execute her brother, not to kill her brother, not to bring him to his death, not to torture him. I don't know how many people know how many she pleads with them. She begs them. Until she says, Layta saman taqabat ala al-ard, that if only the heavens would fall to the earth. If only the heavens would fall to the earth. And then that moment occurred where Abu Abdullah is gone. And then we read, Latamat alayka al-khur al-ayn. And then the khur al-ayn begin to do latmiyah over you. And then the news is brought to Rasulullah. Then the news is brought to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And we read, Fuji'at bika ummuka Zahra. And your mother Zahra is brought the news. Can we imagine after those 40 days, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, Sayyida Zainab, knew what it felt like to be betrayed. They knew what it felt like to not receive an answer. Yet on that day, Sayyida Zainab hoped, wished that perhaps some humanity would be found within these men. Some sense of their fitrah would be found within their hearts. Yet on that day, they turned their face to her. On that same day, just as they turned their face to Sayyida Zahra on those 40 days. And that is what we call the cosmic pain. That is the pain that is felt throughout the universe. That is the pain of the martyrdom, not only the martyrdom, but the abuse of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And we read in the traditions that Sayyida Sakina meets Sayyida Zahra in the prison in Sham. And I've recited this before, but there's a very important point at the end, that where Sayyida Sakina is standing in front of Sayyida Zahra, of course in Alam al-Ru'ya, in the world of dreams. And she begins to tell her what they have done to her father. And Sayyida Zahra says that the strings of my heart are breaking. The strings, niyatu qalbi, that the strings of my heart are severing and breaking as you tell me this. And then she says, هَذَا قَمِيسُ أَبِيكَ الْحُسَيْنِ. This is the shirt of your father Hussein alayhi salam. And I shall not, لا يفارقني حتى ألقى الله به, that I shall not part with this shirt. According to other riwayah, القميص مضمخا بدمي, that this qamis is soaked in the blood of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And she says that I will never part with this shirt until I meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with it. Meaning until Yawm al-Qiyamah, I will not leave the shirt of my butchered son. I will not leave the shirt of my beheaded son. Of this bloodied shirt, I will hold it with me until the day of judgment. And we read in the traditions that she arrives on the day of judgment. And the riwayat tell us that she comes on the day of judgment and she says, it's very interesting that she is playing this role and not Rasulullah in many traditions. She says, Ya Rabbi, hada qamisu waladi, that my Lord, this is the qamis of my son. Qad alimat ma suni'a bi. You know what was done to him. I don't need to tell you, Allah, what was done to my son. I don't need to tell you how they butchered him, how they hurt him, how they left him thirsty, how they left him taht al-fara and on the ground. I don't need to tell you this. Allah, you know what they have done to my son. And now today I ask you, faqdi baynana wa baynahum. Judge between us and them. And that is the ultimate justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will be given out fi yawm al-qiyamah at the request of Sayyida Zahra salamullahi alayha. Matima Hussein, Matima Zahra.